Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help promote the channel more. And if you're going to leave a dislike, please be so kind as to comment why. That way I can review what you didn't like about the video and I can possibly make changes in future videos. Thank you. If you enjoy listening to the following story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. Camp Wanahee, Part 1. This fantastic story is written by Wanahee, a wonderful author over on Reddit's NoSleep subreddit. Hi everyone, my name is Carl West and I'm the head counsellor and the only year-round resident at Camp Wanahee. I'm in the US, which from what I hear from the campers and other counsellors is a dumpster fire right now. I don't really follow much that's going on in the outside world. However, I feel that with all the upheaval, maybe I can interest you with some experiences I've had since being here. Camp Wanahee has been the site of many summer adventures for countless kids over the past 85 years. The campsite was established back in 1919, when people were getting back to living their lives after World War I. It only shut down officially during the Great Depression, and even then it was overrun with homeless folk who had lost everything in the stock market crash. Officials from the nearest town came to get them out of the area, but when they arrived, they found it completely abandoned. They took down the shanty town, but you can still find the remains of some shacks in the woods. We have lots of history in the area aside from the former squatters. We are located about a quarter of a mile away from the site of a battle between the United States Army and a part of a now forgotten American Indian tribe. I say battle, but it should be considered a massacre. There were a few soldiers who died, though it was after the battle due to infection from wounds they received. About 100 or so members of the tribe were slaughtered. There is a nice little plaque though to commemorate the location and the sacrifice of the soldiers. All in all, it's just like every summer camp you and I have ever been to. Campfires, activities, obstacle courses, crafts and so on. That's not why this place would interest you though. It's the strange, the weird and the horrifying you want. Camp Wanahee has these as well, and I'll give you a few examples. For instance, a cursory glance of the place will tell you there are 12 buildings. Later on, you'll swear there are 13, but as you go to count them, you find that there are only 12 again. You might go to the wrong restroom and come out several minutes later to find that over an hour or more has passed. I have thought about having that restroom boarded up or even dismantled, but it's just too funny when people happen to reappear at the same time. Most of the campers and counsellors don't use it after the first week. If you're at Camp Wanahee, you may also see a figure known as Tree Leg. Much like Bigfoot, the name is unimaginative yet effectively descriptive. It stands about 18 feet tall. It has long legs and arms covered in a tree bark-like skin. The head and body are comically small and difficult to see unless you know what you're looking for. It has great camouflage and will stand still for hours sometimes. It seems to be harmless and appears to watch over the camp. It also eats our compost. They started composting back in the 70s to help grow what they thought were tomato plants, but turned out to be marijuana. Officially, they got rid of everything. Unofficially, Coot, the previous head counsellor, found a place outside of camp to grow it, and from then on took an interest in gardening. Regardless, Tree leg is nice, just a little unnerving to most people when they see it. Also, you cannot go near the lake if you are a virgin. Turns out there is a water spirit at the lake who wants virgins, but only if they're over 18. She's not a creep, as she has told me. This is a question asked at an interview, and works as a good way of weeding out those who may not exactly jive with the strangeness of this place. People usually get weirded out by the prospective boss asking if they are virgins. You would also be surprised as to how many virgins apply for camp counsellor jobs. Thankfully, there are enough desperate people who don't care about those kind of questions and are also not virgins. Otherwise, we would have to shut down the lake, which would be a real bummer. Those are some of the more common and benign occurrences at the camp. Every now and then we get something new. This can be good, but is more often bad or a combination of the two. When something happens that I haven't experienced before, I take a look through the Camp Wanahee Action Plan Book, CWAP for short. Coot had compiled everything he had experienced over the last 50 plus years of working here into this book. It's absolute chaos. Loose papers, sticky notes, and sometimes entire notebooks all pierce through the rings of a massive metal 3-ring binder. If anyone were to find it, they would assume it is the magnum opus of a crazy person. They would be partially correct. In his defence, the reason the CWAP is such a mess is because there's always an addendum to be made, or something entirely new to be added to it. I've had to make several entries myself to inform whoever replaces me here on how to help keep people safe. Before he retired, I asked Coot why he decided to start writing all this stuff down, and he told me the following story. It was the 70s, and Coot had been working as the head counsellor for a few years at this point. He had seen a lot of weird stuff that happens here, but never felt that he or anyone else were in any danger. All of the campers were in bed, and the counsellors had all stayed up to sample some of Coot's herbs. It was late in the night when they started hearing what sounded like muffled screaming. Worried about one of the kids being in trouble, everyone leapt into action, their highs now replaced with adrenaline. Flashlights in hand, they took off into the dark in the direction of the sound coming from the other side of the camp. Once they passed the last cabin, he said they saw the figure of a woman coming out of the tree line. Her skin was ghostly white, almost translucent, and stretched tight over a skeletal frame. She was covered in what remains of a dress, threadbare to the point of it being useless. A large tear running up the middle of the dress exposed her stomach. A tangled and matted mess of dirty brown hair fell down her back. He told me her hands didn't have palms, saying it looked like someone had taken a knife and cut between every bone in the hand. It made her fingers look like they had sprouted from the wrists. Her feet were also the same way, giving her these awful appendages that were too big and spread out far too wide. He said the worst part, however, was that she had no face. There were the outlines of her skull and a pronounced point where the nose was, but it was all covered with skin. They could see her mouth moving under the surface. Each time she screamed, they saw the skin covering the mouth bulge with the expelled air, pulling the skin tighter and exposing the blood vessels below the surface. She moved in a lurching and desperate way as she wandered aimlessly, unable to see where she was going. At this point, one of the female counsellors screamed, and the creature's head jerked violently towards the sound. She began moving in their direction quicker than they expected. They all began running, trying to get to the nearest cabin. The sound of their running allowed her to follow them, and she broke into a lurching sprint, her screaming becoming more ravenous. Coot said that one of the other counsellors, a girl named Vicky, tripped and rolled her ankle. He didn't see this, but the other counsellors did. No one tried to stop to save her. In their desperation for safety, none of them wanted to be the hero. Coot burst into the cabin, which was thankfully empty, and everyone rushed in after him. He looked out to see Vicky trying to run, but she could barely put weight on her foot. Vicky's screams of desperate horror pierced the night's unhindered clarity, rising above the muffled cries of the woman. before Coot could go out to try to get her, he saw the woman's long fingers wrap around Vicky's throat, cutting her scream short as they tightened. The woman yanked her backwards off her feet. She appeared to do so effortlessly, despite her emaciated-looking body. Vicky's head was brought to the woman's stomach, a gaping maw opened vertically, jagged teeth glistening in the moonlight, and a great tongue slithered out. Coot watched in horror as the tongue wrapped around Vicky's head, pulling it inside. The jaws snapped shut. He saw her body jerk violently, then fall limp to the ground as her head was severed. He heard the crunching as it chewed. He told me it was the worst thing he'd ever heard and was never able to forget it. One of the other counsellors pushed Coot out of the way and closed the door. The rest of the counsellors blocked the entrances with every bunk they could. With a hastily constructed barrier in place, they remained as quiet as possible. The screaming started again, and they waited to hear her attempt to get in. After a very few tense moments, they noticed that the screaming began to recede. Coot walked up the courage to look out the window. He saw the woman carrying Vicky's headless corpse back into the woods. They all remained within the cabin until the sun finally rose. They made their way to the counsellor's cabin and phoned the police. A search was done, but nothing was ever found. The police figured they'd all been too high and had hallucinated the whole thing. They also said Vicky likely had a bad trip and got lost in the woods, or had decided to walk back to town and hitchhike to some unknown destination. While these explanations are a stretch, it's far more believable than the story the counsellors told police. The camp was closed and looked like it was going to remain shut permanently. That was when the new camp owner had came in and bought the place for almost nothing. When Coot heard this, he tried to dissuade him. When that didn't work, he asked to be hired on as the head counsellor. He began working on the plan book that following summer at the newly named Camp Wanahee. During that summer, the clothes Vicky was wearing the night she disappeared were found, neatly folded and stacked on a log just inside the tree line. The Faceless, as Coot called her, had returned many times. I've been here for my fair share of them. However, no one has ever met with Vicky's fate at the hands of that creature, thanks to the CWAP and the guidelines within it. I'm sorry to end on such a downer note, but I've got to cut the post here. It's time to roast marshmallows, and I'm not going to miss out on that. I've also got to make sure that the salt circle around the door that appeared in the woods 2 days ago is still intact. It takes so long for those damn things to go away, and I don't want whatever it is on the other side to have a chance of coming through. I'll be back with more stories of the weird stuff at Camp Wanahee soon. Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. And don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. Have you written a creepypasta story you would like me to narrate? Have you had any cryptid sightings, paranormal or supernatural encounters, or even had a creepy or terrifying situation you would like to share? Well, I now have my very own subreddit community where you can submit your stories. The link for that is also in the thumbnail as well as down below in the description. You can submit your stories there, or you can send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. Now I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. And if you'd like to support the channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. And if you would like to support the channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Cryptids Roost, and any and all donations would be gratefully received. Again, that will also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.